Okay, problem number 2 on the free response is a proof involving congruence. So it says in the diagram of triangle OMP, and OQN, angle M, that's this angle right here, and angle Q, this angle, are congruent, so I can mark those. And MO, that segment, MO, is congruent to segment QO. So I'm going to sort of, since there's a lot of segments involved, I'm going to kind of show that these two should have a little mark, right, that they're the same. Now, they want us to prove MN, this segment, is congruent to QP. Okay, so let's start off with what I think. I'm already looking at this big triangle. So we're talking about a lot of congruence. So remember, if we can find parts that are congruent, we can find, so if we can find triangles that are congruent, we can prove their parts are congruent. And I'm already looking at this big triangle that they just talked about, that OMP, and I'm looking at OQN, and I'm thinking I have already in this big triangle one angle and one side. Now if I just had another angle, I'd have the two angles I need to prove similarity, and then I have the one side to prove that the proportion is the scale factor of 1. Okay, so, and if you look, this is great. This O, they share that angle O. Both of these triangles share that angle O. So that's actually enough. Already I can say right off the bat, I know these are given, so you would write that those are given, right? And then you would write from there, you can prove triangle MOP is congruent to, and let's triangle, and let's make sure we get these parts right. M corresponds to Q, O corresponds to itself, and P corresponds to N. And then you need to say Y, right? Because proofs say Y. So I can say by the angle side angle, right? Oh, I should have actually before then, I should have written that angle O is congruent to angle O, right? Because it's itself, right? So that's how come I can say this angle side angle. And now because we know that these two triangles are congruent, we know their parts are congruent. We can say that this ON is congruent to this OP, right? Because this is one side and this is one side. So I'm going to say that. Okay, segment ON is congruent to segment OP because of corresponding parts of congruent triangles. By corresponding parts of congruent triangles, right? That's my reason. Okay, now, if I know that this long length is congruent to this long length, and I know this short length is congruent to this short length, then what's left over has to be congruent. But how do we say that? You could write that out and you would probably get most of the points for the proof. But I'm going to try to be a little more formal. I'm going to say I know that MN plus, so from here to here, plus NO is equal to MO, right? And I'm going to say that QP plus PO is equal to QO. And I'm going to say, since I know that MO and Q are congruent, and NO and PO are congruent, then MN and QP have to be congruent. So I'm not going to write all that out, but you should for the free response. You should write these two statements, and then you should write, because I know MO and Q are congruent, because I know NO and P are congruent, then MN and QP must be congruent.